Hi everyone, welcome to week 8, our last week. Just wanted to go over some information from week 7. The discussion boards this past week, they were interesting. They were a discussion about the CMS Innovation Center, so hopefully you found that to be interesting. Some of the new and innovative things we have going on in our reimbursement sector. So hopefully you are able to garner some info with regard to our current reimbursement through our readings and our quiz kind of tested some of those knowledge areas, but our discussion really focused on some of the new and innovative ways that we're looking to do reimbursement. So we had talked a little bit last week about accountable care organizations, and that's a new and innovative way, but kind of becoming more mainstream. But some of the information that we discussed in the discussion board, those areas within the CMS Innovation Center, those are really more cutting edge, very small pilot projects that are going on kind of across the nation in a lot of different areas to provide funding for reimbursement projects, to provide funding for research, lots of new and neat things that CMS is doing from a funding perspective, be it for reimbursement for care, reimbursement for research, those types of things. So kind of some neat stuff going on there. So I do want to go over, well, obviously this past week your final projects were due in, so I'll be taking a look at those. But I do want to go over a few quiz questions. I'm just going to bring up a document here. So our quiz questions for this week that I wanted to review, and I normally have them printed out, but I'm actually at my place here in Pittsburgh, and I don't have a printer, so so I just copied and pasted them here. So the first one: how are pre-existing medical conditions covered under the Affordable Care Act? So obviously it's a multiple choice question, but our correct answer was private insurance plans have to cover them starting in 2014. And this was one of the big, big elements of the Affordable Care Act was that they could no longer, pre-existing conditions could no longer be a private insurance plan, obviously group health plans, and the various elements of coverage under the health exchanges, etc. They could not be you could not be turned down based on pre-existing conditions. Now there is concern about all of the repeal and replace, which has kind of been failed at this point, but there is concern that the current administration will make changes so that pre-existing conditions will no longer be covered. That is one of, as part of the changes that have been proposed, and at this point have all been shot down, but there have been changes proposed where pre-existing conditions will no longer be covered under various medical plans, be it group health plans, be it the health exchange type plans, private insurance plans, etc. But at this point, insurance plans generally do have to cover pre-existing medical conditions. There are still some limitations. Some plans can put some limitations on coverages depending on financial limits, etc. But generally, pre-existing medical conditions are covered. They don't have to provide an unlimited amount of benefits, however. So do keep that in mind. The second question, Medicare Part B premiums are, and obviously it's a multiple choice question, but our correct answer is income based. And that's kind of I think there's a fallacy that every person pays the same Medicare Part B premium. And in the past, that was the case many years ago, but that's not the case anymore. There is kind of a standard premium, but then that it is it is altered based on income. So if you have a high income, you're going to pay the highest premium. But if you have lower income, your premium will be decreased based on your income. So it all depends on what your income is at the time. And obviously, Medicare Part B, that is Medicare is the insurance, government provided insurance for those that are over 65 or that have end-stage renal disease or have certain disabilities. And so Medicare Part B is kind of the equivalent of major medical insurance. So it provides services, it provides coverage for the professional side of services. So typically physician services, outpatient services, so outpatient hospital, that side of the kind of that side of the operation. Medicare Part A, which is the other piece of Medicare, the other major piece of Medicare, is the hospitalization piece of the insurance. Medicare Part A does not have premiums unless you have not worked in the United States. Then you do not. If you have not worked in the U.S. and had taxes taken out of your, if you haven't had your Medicare tax taken out, FICA taken out of your paycheck, then you would obviously have to pay in to Medicare Part A. There's a way that you can actually buy Medicare Part A. If you're eligible for it, you have to meet eligibility. But let's say that you were a U.S. citizen that maybe was self-employed, or maybe you had worked out of the country for some reason. You may be able to buy into Medicare Part A, but generally most people that work in the U.S. Have paid in and can get Medicare Part A for free. It's Medicare Part B that you have to pay for. So last question. In general, prospective payment systems establish reimbursement for, and our correct answer here is bundled services. So prospective payment systems, I'm sure you read about them in the textbook, but prospective payment systems were first used by the Medicare program. Now Medicaid program also began to use them pretty extensively for inpatient. And now many private insurers also use prospective payment. But probably the most commonly known and popular prospective payment system is the diagnosis-related group, DRG system, used for inpatient on the Medicare side. And what it really does is kind of group services together or bundle them together. So when the DRG system takes, for example, all of the elements of your inpatient stay when you go into a hospital and pays it as one group one bundle of services for that stay. So for example, if you were to go into the hospital if you were to say have a heart attack, your stay would be paid based on your diagnosis of acute MI and not based on your fact that you were there 3 days, you had X number of drugs, you had X number of scans, you had blah, blah, blah. It's a bundled payment based on the fact that your diagnosis was acute MI or whatever it happened to be. So that's how a prospective payment system works. And it's a risk-based system. So if a person has an acute MI and is in the hospital for 3 days, or has an acute MI and is in the hospital for 7 days, the hospital is going to get paid the same amount of money. So hospital assumes a certain amount of risk based on how much it costs them to provide the service. They're always going to get paid the same amount of money. Based on the diagnosis of the patient and the service of sometimes surgical services that they provide also play into the type of diagnosis-related group payment they receive. So inpatient DRGs are just one type of prospective payment system. There's an outpatient prospective payment system for Medicare. There's inpatient rehab. There's inpatient psych. There's home health. Those are just the Medicare ones. There's all different types of them, but in any case, they are all reimbursement for bundled services, and that is the definition of that type of service. So that's the end of our quiz questions. If you have any other issues, problems with quiz questions, please let me know. Also, please remember this is week 8, so our week ends on Friday. And so all assignments this week, there's I think just a couple of discussion boards this week. It's a pretty limited week, but please make sure that you get everything in by Friday this week. At the end of the day, and your new online classes for those of you that are fully online students, or if you're taking online 8-week classes, they begin on Saturday. Saturday morning, the new classes will be starting. So it's been a pleasure working with everyone this term. I hope to see you again in a future HSA class, especially if you're HSA students. I may see you again next term, but if you're not a HSA major, I hope to, please feel free to come join us again, and hope to see everyone again in the future. And best of luck to everyone. See everyone in the discussion boards this week. Thanks so much.